Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Unapologetically Woman. This year, we're celebrating phenomenal women all across Kentucky who make no apologies for their perspectives or the impacts that they're making in the community. Today, we're celebrating my friend Lisa Higgins-Hord, who is unapologetically building connections across Kentucky and serves as both Assistant Vice President of Community Engagement at the University of Kentucky and Strategic Implementation Coordinator for the City of Lexington. Lisa is a mom, an educator, and she works to build equality, equity, and justice in Lexington. Unapologetically Woman, Lisa Higgins-Hord, that's you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to be celebrating you today.
Well, thank you so much. This is an honor. I tell you, it's really an honor.
Well, we're glad to have you. We're just going to jump right in.
Sure.
So you went from pre-K to UK. Tell us about that.
Well, I've always loved children. I've always loved development and how children learn. And so I wanted to be a preschool teacher. So I went to school, the University of Kentucky, and I graduated with a master's degree in early childhood education. And I decided that I wanted to basically have a wonderful opportunity in being a preschool teacher and learning alongside with children. So I moved to Washington, D.C., and in D.C. I spent time at the National Child Research Center as a preschool teacher. And one of the things that a lot of the teachers did was they were always asking me questions about, we really have a lot of issues that are going on with our health care. We have issues that are going on with our pay. Could you go and talk to some people in the office about that? And I kept going to the office a lot. And finally I said, do I belong in the classroom or do I belong in the office? And so I decided that it probably was going to be the office, was going to be my calling.
And so you have a pretty interesting story about Washington, D.C. and early childhood education and BET.
Yes.
How does all of that intertwine?
Well, as I was at the National Child Research Center, Bob and Sheila Johnson, they have one of their children was in the early childhood preschool class, and they needed someone to actually work with their children, tutor them, but also be somebody who could be a really great influence in their life and somebody who knew development, early childhood development. So they had two children and one was there, and I ended up working for them, and in D.C., it's a very expensive place to live. And so when you're first starting out and you want to save the world, one of the very first things I did was like, okay, I need more than one job. I ended up being their tutor and their babysitter, and I actually lived with them. So I had an amazing experience while I was there, not only as a preschool teacher, but also traveling with Bob and Sheila Johnson. We went to Africa. We went to England. We spent a lot of time. We flew on the Concorde over to Africa. So it was really a cool opportunity for me to meet not only the people that they were around, but to be around business-minded people, African Americans, who really and truly loved people of color.
Wow, that is so exciting.
Yes.
When you were babysitting, did you let the children watch BET?
Well, one of the reasons why I think they hired me, one of the questions in the interview was that, would you let our children watch BET? And I said, absolutely not. It is not meant for young children, it is meant for adults. And it is an entertainment channel, so I said, no, I would not. And I got a big smile, and I knew then, I was like, well, I don't know what I just said, but I think I just insulted the BET, but it appears that they liked that I insulted BET. But it was really about the values and the development of children and exactly what they needed to be doing at the age that they had. So I guess they liked what I said.
And got hired.
I got hired.
Yeah.
I got hired, yeah.
Okay, so that was pre-K. Now take us to UK. What are you doing at UK?
The University of Kentucky. I actually am a Assistant Vice President for Community Engagement. I spend a lot of time with faculty, staff, and students, and we work on projects with the community. We also teach people how to interact and collaborate with people in the community as well, because one of the things that is at the University of Kentucky is that you have a lot of people with bachelor's, master's, and PhDs. And I always tell them that your expertise is just in your field, but when you go out into the community, people have expertise in their fields, and they may have a PhD in community work. As you know, it may not be that it's on paper, may not be on paper, but it is in their minds because they understand and they know their community. So if you want to collaborate with them, learn from them, listen to people, and that will get you much further.
So you've spent a lot of time listening over this last 18 months, right?
Yes, I have.
This has been a busy time.
It's been a transformational time for me, I do believe, yeah.
Tell us about that.
Well, I started in 2018. I was actually diagnosed with breast cancer, and I thought, I think, my doctor, when they asked me what was I going to do about this, I was actually in a hotel room in Indianapolis because my daughter was a volleyball player, and I spent a lot of time on the roads on the weekend. And I remember having to sit out in the parking lot being told that I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and the doctor said, so what are you going to do? This is 7 o'clock at night. And I said, well, we're going to kick cancer's butt, and we're going to keep going. And she said, that's exactly what I want to hear. We're going to set up a plan, and we're going to make this work. So I spent the next year and a half really, and the University of Kentucky was really great about that because they kept it very private. It was something that I wanted to have private because it was, it was my health, and it was all about my well-being. And so in that process, I decided that it was all about me at that time. It was all about everyone else before. It was about my husband, it was about my daughter, it was about my family, but at that point I needed help. I needed to understand who I was and also how to be as healthy as I could in the process, mentally as well as physically. So I had a chance to really go through all of the treatments, go through the plans, and a year and a half later I was cancer-free. Yes. So I was very excited.
Fight like a girl.
Absolutely. Fight hard like a girl. Mm-hmm. And when they rang that bell, when I finished my last set of radiation treatments, I was overjoyed. But I also knew that my work was not finished. I knew that at that point it was sort of like a crossroads for me. I had met myself at a crossroads and made a decision. What do you want to do with your life? And so last year was a very critical moment, I think, for everyone in our nation, really, not just even in our community. And I made the decision at that point when I started seeing everything that was about the pandemic and also about the racial inequalities that we began to see come to the surface. We knew that they were there, but we just did not see them in such a magnification until COVID happened. I early on in the year, after seeing all of this, I think it was in June, I just basically prayed about it and said, God, use me the way you want to use me. And I said, I'm here. I need to do something. We all need to do something. Show me what I can do. Here, what my skill sets are. You know what I'm going to do when I get in a room, and when I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. Mm-hmm. So it was like less than 30 days later. I mean, everything started changing. So yes.
So you get a call from the mayor.
I get a call from the mayor, and she basically.
Lisa, how are you?
By the way, I'm considering appointing you to District 6 councilperson. Would you consider that? And I looked over my shoulder going, okay, what is this? What's really going on here? And I told her, I said, let me think about this. I said, this is very serious. I said, being a council member, being any kind of a leader in the community means that you're going to have a commitment to it. And I really want to make sure that this is right for me. And I spent a little bit of time thinking about it, praying about it, and really saying, I can do this. I know I can do this. This is, everything is always you're a little hesitant at first going, me? Why me? What can I do with this? But I knew that my lived experiences as a black woman in Lexington and also as a black woman who's traveled and done as much as I have been able to do, I knew I could service and stand in whatever room, any room, and support the constituents in my district. I knew also that if there was anybody that came to me and said I need help, I was going to figure out a way to help them with it. So I said, sure, let's do this. Let's go ahead. Appoint me. I'm ready.
And she wasted no time.
She wasted no time. She gave me, after I told her yes, she said, you have 3 days before your press conference. And by the way, that afternoon, you have your first work session. So I actually went from being appointed and being sworn in by my aunt, Judge Goodwine, to 10 minutes later, talking to the press, and they said, okay, your first work session is, you've got to go. And literally, I was whisked away. I was like, this only happens on TV, right? I was whisked away, happening. Literally. And I said, wow. And that's what I said. I said, this is literally happening. I asked for this. Now I'm receiving it. And I've got to go through with it, and I'm ready.
And she's continuing. She has not let you go.
She has not let me go.
No, she has not.
She has not.
So also Mayor Linda Gordon created the Mayor's Commission on Racial Justice and Equality.
Yes.
You want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, as you know,
you've got a lot of work.
Well, as you know, it was a 70-member commission, and you were part of that commission in the education and I think economic opportunity section. And all of that work right now, I am working on an implementation plan for it, as well as really digging into and looking at frameworks, really trying to discover what we can do and how we can make a difference in the lives of people of color in this community. When you look at the data that you see in Fayette County, I've looked at some of the data from Civic Lex and had some conversations with them, and it's very stark. It's very sobering to know that our poverty here in the city of Lexington equals, and actually is above that of the poverty level in the state for black people in this community. That to me is an unacceptable number. It's unacceptable. And I said, what can we do? And looking at educational attainments, those are lower. Looking at health disparities, those are very prevalent. And I try not to always look at communities in deficits, but when you have to understand what is really going on with a community, and you know that there needs to be something more to a community than just talking about what the deficits are, there have to be solutions. And I think what's happening right now is being able to put solutions in place. Every time I talk to someone, I tell them, I said, this is going to be everyone's legacy in this city. This is not just the mayor's legacy of working on what these recommendations are to us. We all know what the situation is. And whether or not you believe in that or not, you can look at the data. You know that it's there. And what are we going to do? We're all in this together. We're all connected. And if we don't pitch in and do what we need to do for ourselves, in 10 to 20 years, I don't want our children coming back to us and saying, you knew this was happening. What did you do?
The answer can never be nothing.
Absolutely. It can never be nothing, and it has to say, I did my part. And I always tell everyone, no matter how large and how small it is, you do your part, and it's going to work out for us. But you've got to do the work.
And so, are you...
That's that teacher coming out.
I know. Pre-K taught you how to
exactly.
do it. Yes. So, are you hoping for big, bold movement, or are you looking for incremental movement? What does that look like?
I think it's a combination. I think it's a combination. I think you cannot just look at this and say, this is, big, bold movements. We got to push ahead these big visionary ideas. I'm a visionary person, but I also think that we have to envision what we want to see in our black communities. People have to envision themselves succeeding. What do we want to see? Do we want to see more black businesses in our community? Do we want to see more businesses of color, from Asians and some of our immigrants that have come to Lexington? And the answer to that is yes. And how do we set up a structure within our community now? We know the system that's here now has not produced what we need. So now we have to look at that system and we have to question it with all the right moves, question it and be open to change, and not just say this is the way we've always done something. Look and say, we can improve this, we can make this better. And government, I'm learning about government. I learned on a very quick pace when I was on the council, but learning the infrastructure and how government is set up. And I always tell people government cannot do this alone. It takes nonprofits, it takes for-profits, it takes people in our community to be a part of this.
And so being a part of that also means being registered to vote, participating in that whole process.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think if you want your voice heard, you have to in some way participate. I always tell people you can't complain if you don't put forth any effort to make any change. But you can let people know what the deficits are. You can let people know what the concerns are so that people can work together. But you have to have your voice in there and you have of
And so you have your voice almost everywhere because you're also the
It's
chair
everywhere.
of a board.
It's everywhere.
You're also the chair of a board.
I am, yes. The Carnegie Center, yes. And so I actually didn't know that I was the first African American to actually chair the board, which actually tells you that, the Carnegie Center has been around for a long time, but the Carnegie Center has a wonderful director in Neil Cheddick, and we have had a great conversation in the last year and a half. I've served on his board for a while, and oddly enough, the person that was supposed to take over as chair was Linda Gordon, and I was vice chair. So would you know, she went and became mayor, and guess who ended up having to be immediately inducted into being chair?
You and Linda have a connection.
I was like, I don't know what this is here, but there it is. So it's been a great opportunity for me because one of the things that I love to do in my, I don't have a lot of free time, but when I do have free time, I love to write. I love to write children's stories. I love to write. Yes.
I didn't know
yes,
that.
Yes, and I have finished a manuscript that is a wonderful manuscript, and I'm actually working on something else right now. So I understand what it means when you have your words on paper and they come to life for people and they read them.
So tell me about the work with the Kentucky Black Writers Collaborative.
At the Carnegie Center, because I am chair there at this moment, it's one of the things that we created. What we wanted to do was we wanted to do our part. The Carnegie Center says, what can we do in our community? We know what the inequities are. We know that we may be a part of the problem instead of part of the solution. Help us, because you're chair, to look at our policies, look at what we do, and see where we can actually enhance and have a bigger voice in the Black community. And so that was one of the collaboratives that we've actually created. And Claudia Love Mayer is the program coordinator for that. And so for all emerging Black writers, not only in Lexington but across the state of Kentucky, can actually take classes free for the next 2 years, and you can learn free. Yes. Free. Yes. And you will be mentored. You will have the opportunity to be a part of a collaborative and talk with other Black budding writers. And you can be, anywhere between a poet, you can be a nonfiction writer, a fiction writer, children's books, memoirs, whatever it is that your heart desires. And you've always wanted to do this, and you're an emerging writer, you can go there and you can actually take classes.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yes, it is. And so that is one of the things that they wanted to do to give back in.
That's awesome.
Yes.
So let me ask you this. I have to ask you this because you're a mom. What do you hope your daughter sees when she looks at you? When Caitlin looks at you, what do you hope that she sees and gains from you?
Oh, I know what she sees, because she's actually, my daughter is she's actually a rising junior. She'll be a senior this year at Penn State University.
And she plays volleyball there.
Yes, she plays volleyball, and she's very good at that sport. It's one of her many talents. I always tell her it's one of her many talents.
She can spike it like no other, but anyway.
She can, yes, and her goal is to be an Olympian, and last year she was actually going to be practicing against the Olympic team, and the day before she was to leave to actually go to California, COVID struck and they canceled it. So she had to. I know. So they had to. So she had to fly back home, and she was pretty bummed about that. No. But she does have those hopes, and she made the women's national collegiate team this year. So I expect big things out of her because she expects them out of herself. But one of the things I'd love for her to know in me is that I never give up. It was a very trying year, as I said, in 2018 for me, but that was also a year where she was going off to college. So you can imagine that your mother was being diagnosed with cancer in January and that you had to leave to go off to college in May. But what I told her was that I was going to be fine, that she would be a part of the process. I would let her know what was going on, and that she needed to go and be who she was and spread her wings. And I have taught her as much as I could. Her dad has taught her as much as he could. It was time for her to go out and show the world who she was.
So she's not the only person doing great things in college. I understand there's a special connection with Indiana, Miss Indiana.
You went there, didn't you?
Yes, I did go there. Tell us about that.
Well, I have to say it, I'm wearing Hoosier Red today, but anyway. But I moved, actually, after I graduated, I moved to Indiana. And I had participated in pageants for a very long time, and people called them beauty pageants, but I called them pageants that supported my scholarships to go to school. One of the things that my mother, I did it on a dare in I guess it was my high school year, and I won the Miss Harrison County RECC. And then I thought, okay, I'm done with this. And she's like, no, there's a state pageant. I'm like, oh, what? So I ended up being in this state pageant, and I ended up that year, before I went into my freshman year, making $3,500 just being able to tell people who I was, what I love to do, standing up in a beautiful gown, wonderful outfits. And I'm like, this is pretty good. I think I can handle this. I think I can handle this. And so after leaving Lexington, and moving to, and I did compete in Miss Kentucky here, and did not get as far as, I think it was third runner-up, but I ended up in Indiana, and on my first tryout, I think I was contested at 114. I won. And I was like, are you kidding me? I won this, yay! So I spent an entire year working with, like at the time, it was Governor Evan Bayh and his and Lieutenant Governor's office, and working and talking about early childhood education across the state of Indiana. And so I had a wonderful year, and I would never trade it for anything because I call it my second home.
We look at this, and you have done so many amazing things, and so it's been about the journey. Who has helped you, and who made those tough sacrifices for you to be where you are today, Lisa?
I think who made those tough sacrifices are people like my grandmother and my mother. I come from a family where I was a single-parent family home where I was born in Colgood, Kentucky. And it was in Appalachian Mountains. And I will tell you, I did not know we were poor, but everyone else knew we were poor. And to give you that stark image, we're talking about an outhouse. We're talking about taking a bath in the front of kitchen area. So that was how I started my life, to a single mother and to a grandmother, and being in an extended family home. And so learning from people like that, and learning that love was most powerful above all else, and then also the determination that was in my mother and my grandmother and my family. My grandmother had 11 kids. She just recently passed. She's 99 and a half years old, lived a very full, wonderful life, and I wish that same thing for everyone in this world, is that you travel that journey and have it as full of love and full of all the things that you want to experience in your lifetime. It's here for us. It's for the taking for all of us, actually.
Lisa, thank you so much for joining us and letting us celebrate you. But I want to leave you with the last words to young girls or young women who might be watching and might be concerned about the journey and the path that they're taking. A little bit of encouragement for them. Well,
the one thing I can tell them is that there is an opportunity for you to be whoever it is that you want to be in this world. Don't ever let anyone tell you that you can't do it, you're not good enough, and don't ever let anybody define who you are. You define who you are. You hone your skills, you learn your craft, and you go out and you start your journey, and you let nothing stand in your way.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
You heard it from Lisa Higgins-Hord. Don't let anything stand in your way. Continue to join us as we celebrate other women just like Lisa all across Kentucky who are doing phenomenal things and making impacts in the communities. I'll see you next time.